I'm going to really encourage everyone to use video, because there's nothing like having this medium where people can see you, hear you talk, see your expressions, and really get to build that know, like, and trust factor with you.
I think the future is going to be growing crops indoors, because indoors you don't have severe weather issues and you minimize the amount of water you have for crops.
I was always way too hot, and that's why I couldn't sleep. I'd toss and turn, the mattress would heat up. I tried different mattresses. I tried, cold rooms. I tried everything, every product that I could find, and nothing helped. And, I got to a point of desperation.
This is Richard Gearhart.
And Elizabeth Gearhart. You've just heard from our presenters a little tiny bit. Stay tuned for the whole story.
I'm Richard Gearhart, an intellectual property lawyer specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm not a lawyer. I work at Gearhart Law doing marketing, and I also have my own startup called Fireside.
But you do look like a lawyer. So anyway, welcome to Passage to Profit, everybody. The show that's all about small businesses, innovation, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. And today we have a special treat for you, Emmy Wu from Emmy Wu Media. And she's going to be talking about videos and getting your story out there.
And we have
excited to be here.
Yeah, great. And we have two incredible presenters. We have Bryan Fried. So I know we can't grow our own food because we don't live on farms, but if you really want to know where your food's coming from and grow it yourself, Bryan's your guy. And we also have Jason Elliott. So how many of you toss and turn all night like I do or used to because your sheets are the wrong temperature? Oh my gosh, I wish I'd had these 20 years ago. So he has made this incredible device to put on your bed so that your bed is the right temperature for you.
That sounds great. So, but before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time for the IP roundtable. So
IP in the news.
Yeah, that too. So the IP in the news is a story about copyrights today. And do you want to start off with the story?
Sure. So I was cruising the internet and I found from Plugged, your sardonic source for consumer tech stories on
your sardonic source for
consumer tech stories.
Right? What is a sardonic source?
So kind of like sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
At thenextweb.com. And this is a story by Callum Booth. So these crypto bros spent millions on this rare Dune book, right? We all know what Dune is, right?
Yeah, Dune is that sci-fi movie. They've made it a couple of times and they've got a series going, I think. So yeah, right. It's a sci-fi thing.
So they thought when they bought the book that it included all the copyright rights.
Right. So they bought an original copy, like one of the first copies of the Dune book. And they thought that they got all the copyrights with that by buying the book. So they had all these plans now to make a series and merch and the whole 9 yards. And they paid $3 million for the book. Right. So this is not just pocket change. And unfortunately, they only found out later that just buying the book doesn't entitle you to the rights to make the movies and etc.
Right. They wanted to make an animated series. They wanted to sell NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Those have been in the news lately and all that stuff. But you can't do that if you don't own the copyright.
That's right. And so I guess the IP takeaway from this segment is don't buy a book expecting that you own all the rights to it. So it's sort of like buying a version of a magazine, Sports Illustrated, and owning the publisher or something.
And it's always a good idea to talk to an attorney like Richard, who does copyrights, before, if you want to use anything in any sort of medium.
Yeah, well, they were crypto lords and obviously had a whole bunch of money to spend on something.
They didn't
like
spend
this.
anything on a lawyer. So, okay.
Anyway, so much for that. It's time for Richard's roundtable. So you can either comment on the story, or if you have a question about intellectual property, I'd be happy to address that. So why don't we start with our guest this evening, Emmy Wu. Emmy, welcome to the program.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
Oh, great. Well, we're very happy to have you. So tell us, What are your thoughts about this?
Well, my first thought, honestly, is what the heck, major lapse in research. But also, I also immediately felt bad, when you go through the actions, assuming one thing, and then you get to the end of that journey, realizing that what you thought was true is completely not true. Having to redo everything, I can only imagine what they have to go through now.
Yeah, and to have this publicized the way it is would be, I think, a little embarrassing. Hopefully, they feel secure in themselves and they can just kind of laugh off their $3 million mistake. So,
Or say, that's what I meant to do all the time.
That's
you
right.
guys were the ones who said this other stuff.
I'm suddenly a rare book collector.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting too, because with my background in film, I know how much clearance is required even just to show a tiny tag on a commercial, on a TV show, on a movie. So in my world, it seems ridiculous that you would even think that you would own the rights to that, but it sure makes for an interesting story.
For sure. So, Bryan, what are your thoughts on this?
If you don't think IP is sexy, you have to, if you're my age, hearken back to when the Beatles' George Harrison got sued because one of his songs on his very first album was the exact mirror of She's So Fine.
Right.
I remember. So it was My Sweet Lord. Remember that?
Yeah,
so all of a sudden, IP became a very big thing. If you're going to be in business, all kidding aside, you really have to pay attention to it. You can't be in business without paying attention to it because you have to make sure you're not stepping on somebody else's IP, which is not a very good thing unless you have a very big checkbook. So I agree with Emmy. I feel bad for these poor folks, and I really don't know who's counseling them, but they need to go to law school.
Wasn't me. I would never have let them do that. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's painful. Oops. Yeah, I agree with Bryan there that, if you're going to do business, then you need to do your due diligence. And that seems a little bit like a drunken night's decision. but I do have a question. I do have a question for you about trademarks on company names and brands, and love
Sure.
to hear your opinion about the impact of not trademarking or trademarking your name, and what the risks are there of not trademarking your brand name.
Well, thank you very much for that question. It's a good one. And a lot of people have that same question. Trademarking, if you're going to make a substantial investment in your business, then you really need to, one, make sure that somebody else isn't using the name that you want to use and already has a trademark on it. And number two, that you actually do invest in a trademark. I mean, it's $2,500 maybe, and it does prevent other people from capitalizing on the brand equity that you've created. So if you've done a lot of advertising, you have a lot of packaging, all of that can be put at risk if the trademark's not handled properly. So it's a relatively small investment for a lot of safety. And so we recommend that people, get trademarks. And if you're a local business and you don't really plan on expanding, it may not make sense for you, but you really need to talk with somebody about it because, even local businesses sometimes get into disputes. So.
Oh, yeah. Where are you located, Jason?
We're in Vancouver, Canada.
So that was what I was thinking, because I grew up in Seattle, so close.
Right.
I knew a lot of Canadians in college, but so you could get trademarks in Canada and the US for this.
Yep.
I don't know if you already have, but
yeah, we actually haven't pursued trademarks. So that's, we've done all the due diligence of not buying a $3 million book that someone already owns. but we haven't actually gone to the point of protecting ourselves. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you should talk with an intellectual property professional about it. And I'm sure you have, but I'm sure that, we'd be happy to help you, but I can't say that on the air. So.
And I think it becomes more of a problem when you start making real money, because if people don't think you have money, they're not going to necessarily go after you. But if you start really getting popular, then watch out.
Right.
Yeah.
So Kenya, what are your thoughts?
So I'm curious to see or hear if this could have gone another way. So they spent all this money on this book, which I think is kind of crazy because you can't even walk into Barnes and Noble and buy anything cheaply and think that you own it, right? So what is the alternative to what they could have done? So could they have negotiated ahead of time, like to have ownership of the usage of what was included in the book?
Well, that's really what they should have done. And they actually ended up, the estate of the author of the book actually sold the rights to another company in 2016. And then shortly after that, the movie Dune came out, right? And so the estate and the other company did it the right way. But they would have had to negotiate with the company that owns the rights now. And I'm not, whether they could have gotten a license under the circumstances is anybody's guess. But that would be the only other option that I see under those circumstances. So I'm sure the other company has plans to do all of this, the same types of things, but they're out of luck.
Well, and I bet the copyright license was not cheap either. So
right.
I don't know what it cost, but I bet it was
probably cheaper than $3 million, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can work out a deal where you give them a percentage of your profits and stuff. So that's the way I would go.
Anyway, well, thanks everybody for your comments. I think that was a great story, and it illustrates how intellectual property can really make you or break you. And if you're making purchases or uses of intangible assets like copyrights or technology, it always makes sense to check in with somebody to make sure you're doing it right. So anyway, now on to our guest segment with Emmy Wu. Emmy, it's so great to see you. And, as you mentioned, you're in this world of videos and you're in this world of promotion. Tell us, what do you do?
So in short, we run two extensions of our brand. We have an agency where we produce videos for clients, and then we also have the educational side where we teach video marketing and kind of our principles to business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, so that they can apply it themselves in their own business.
That sounds great. So let's assume that there's an entrepreneur out there who wants to do some promoting and they don't have like a huge budget. What are some of the things that they can do to promote their business?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the beautiful thing about marketing and growing a business in this day and age is that we have access to all this technology that never was available even a decade before. We can literally pull out our smartphone and start live streaming and talking to people on the other side of the earth, which is pretty amazing. So within this, what's available, I think as entrepreneurs, to really leverage that technology. And because I do video and I know the power of video, I'm going to really encourage everyone to use video, because there's nothing like having this medium where people can see you, hear you talk, see your expressions, and really get to build that know, like, and trust factor with you. So using, live stream video is a fairly easy way that most people can leverage to gain more visibility. And I would say, choose a social media platform that best resonates with you and that your ideal clients are hanging out on. I see a lot of business owners feeling like they need to be everywhere. I got to be on Twitter and YouTube and this and that and Clubhouse, and it becomes super overwhelming. So just focus on what you're great at, master that, and then we can always build from there.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I have, my company's based on video too, but it's different than what you're doing, but it's a startup. I'm not where you are. But one of the reasons I started it was because over the last few years, especially, we've been hearing, well, every business owner needs to use video. Everybody needs to have a video. And you're kind of like, okay, why? What does that mean? Like, how do I use it? And now we're getting more towards, which is along the lines of what you're doing too, is don't shoot a crappy video.
Yeah. Yeah. Quality matters, that's nuance too, because I think many of us get so preoccupied by the idea that our videos have to be perfect and they have to be super professional that they stop before they've even started. They think that they failed already because they don't have that fancy camera, so they might as well not try. And it's actually the opposite is true. I think ultimately we have to remember that it's humans at the other end of that avatar, right? We're looking for connection. We're looking for people that we resonate with, people that we share common values with. And if, just doing live video, perhaps the quality isn't as great, but that's kind of your first step to just showing up and getting your message out there. I think that's a wonderful start.
No, that's a really great point. And but so there are so many videos out there. So how do you counsel people to sort of reach in and then figure out ways to differentiate themselves so that they get noticed above the crowd?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is like the perennial question of the entrepreneur, right? How do I get noticed in the sea of like notifications and other businesses? And I think it's really important before we get kind of too stuck on the strategy and the tactics of visibility to really hone it back into what are you about? What is your brand about? And how can you tell that story of your brand in a way that will relate to your ideal clients? And something that I hear really often is, well, I don't really have like this amazing hero's journey story, that I can tell that's like so epic. I just started my business out of my garage, or, I just started from this passion and I want to see where it would go. Then tell that story, just like this belief that our videos need to be perfect. I think there's also a belief that our stories need to be this huge climactic, Indiana Jones type epic story. And it doesn't have to be, right? It truly is the small details that connect with your ideal clients. It's your challenges that reflect those of your customers and clients. It's your triumphs that also reflect that of your audience. So to keep that in mind along the way.
Well, I'm sure Kenya agrees with you. Kenya's been telling us that this show should be all about storytelling since day one. So Kenya, what do you have to say?
Yeah, and that's what we've been doing this whole time, right? So just curious, I feel like the marketing landscape changes daily, like especially in digital media. So what would you say are some of the marketing must-haves going into 2022?
Great question. So something that I'm pretty firm on in terms of my brand, and it's not, to say that this is the be all end all, but this is just my perspective in that strategies and tactics and algorithms and technology is always going to change. It literally changes every day. What used to be hot last year is not so hot anymore. And how do we keep up with that constant change? My opinion, we don't. We actually leverage our own greatest power on the platform that matters to us. So, for example, leveraging storytelling, something that is going to be fundamentally true across all businesses and across different eras of marketing is that every business has cold, warm, and hot leads. And so despite the tactics or even the platforms that you're using, you can keep in mind that in my marketing, I should approach my audience with these 3 different types of messages as a very foundational kind of starting point, and then leveraging the platform that most resonates with you to then implement that.
what I'm hearing you say is the fundamentals of marketing have not changed over the last few hundred years. It's just the tools that we use change. And that's kind of what Kenya was saying too. And so you're teaching people to use this new tool, video, in the marketing world of 2022.
Right. Yeah. But sticking to storytelling, sticking to, classic forms of connecting with other people that are going to ride out the test of time. Clubhouse might not be here in a couple of years. Who knows what's going on with Facebook ads and the algorithms and iOS changes. And we can use that as a complaint. Why can't I do this? Why can't I get more visibility? This is always changing. But instead of focusing on the things that we can't do, I say it's really important for us to focus on the things that we can do and that we have power over. And how can we really dig deep into that and make the most of what we do have?
I agree. And I think another part of marketing that's sometimes overlooked is, to have a successful business, you have to do a good job. You have to, whatever your brand promises are, or whatever the customer expects from you, you have to deliver that consistently and effectively. And that's like, that in and of itself will drive customers to you, right? The marketing is a way to reach more people to experience that good service or product, but you have to have the basics and the fundamentals down first, because if you don't, then you're going to lose customers no matter how hard you market, right? So
absolutely. At the end of the day, it is all about relationship building, right? And kind of going back to what I said around every business has cold, warm, and hot audiences. Something that, particularly in kind of the online marketing world, there has been this tendency to jump in front of your audiences and almost pitch your offers and start selling your thing right away, which, for us as a consumer, it doesn't feel really good, right? We don't want to be pitched this thing right off the bat. And so when we think about building human relationships, we wouldn't start getting to know somebody, starting to build a friendship by running right up to them and being all up in their face and being like, hey, you want to marry me? That would be a little bit weird, right? And yet,
unless you're my son's dog, my son's dog will do that. He'll run up right into your face and you're like, okay, let's get married, but normal people don't do that. So
right. And seriously, through this whole quarantine that we've been in, we've realized how important these relationships are, right? We took them for granted before, and now it's like, holy crap, I need to see people.
Absolutely.
So, we were talking before about what an important tool video is, and I couldn't agree with you more, but I'm also hearing people talk about Zoom fatigue and everything else. And I agree that video is the best way to communicate your message. But in light of all the time that we're spending on the tube, does that in any way diminish the importance of video? Or
ironically, the statistics actually prove opposite.
Really?
In that in the world where we are so much missing human connection, video has gone upwards exponentially, particularly short form videos. So, 60 seconds or less, getting to the point, very educational, very fun. The opposite end of the spectrum is it is a bit of a dopamine hit, going through these fast moving videos. And yet I think there's something really important to be said, as business owners, how can we then, knowing that your audience is looking for connection, maybe they don't want to be, online watching an hour-long training, how can we slightly pivot our marketing strategies to meet the needs of our audience?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the research I've been looking at for 2022, which is all online, I don't buy the really good research, but anyway, says people want to watch short videos, but LinkedIn and YouTube want you to do long videos. So you gotta
we were like,
both.
that gets totally confusing.
Yeah. So, but Kenya, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm glad you brought up YouTube, Elizabeth, because I've run some YouTube campaigns where we have found statistically that 30-second YouTube videos do much better on a marketing campaign. So it's interesting that, well, no, it makes sense though too. They might want you to run longer content because then it allows for like a better insertion of ads. But it's interesting about like the whole YouTube craze that I wanted to see, Emmy, kind of how you feel about what's happening in the YouTube space.
Mhm. You know, I feel like they are right now kind of, I mean, all the platforms are kind of going after what's working statistically, right? TikTok has really taken the lead since the beginning of the pandemic with like short form, punchy videos. And so Instagram is like, oh, we have to do reels now. And then YouTube is like, oh, now we're going to do shorts. And fine. But again, for me, it's like, how can we take a step back and again, looking at traditional relationship building? I think the reason why short form videos are working so well now is because that is how you kind of make that first connection with people in real life. You know, it is going for that quick coffee meeting or having that first quick date. You're not going to sit down and like spend the entire weekend together if that's your first meeting. And so longer form generally seems to fit warm and hot markets better, where there is a bit of that relationship already and they are invested in learning with you a little bit deeper. Whereas cold audiences, they don't want to hear the whole story. Just give me the goods. And so those short, punchy forms really work well for cold audiences.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I have never really heard it segmented that way. So that's really an interesting
excellent
approach.
I got to tell you though, Emmy, so we're doing a special Passage to Profit called Ask the IP Experts. I don't know if this will air before that airs, but we're trying to promote it. And so I've been trying to do 30-second videos for that. And it's hard to get everything into a 30-second video sometimes. I did it, and we have a program coordinator, and Richard's done a couple, but you know, his are like 40, 45 seconds. She's like, nope, that's too long. Sorry. So we've done one that she'll accept. And
Well,
it's for Facebook ads, right?
if it's an engaging 45 seconds, then people will watch it. If it's, you know,
what she says, and maybe you can answer this for us. She says people look at the time on the video before they decide whether to watch it. And if it's more than 30 seconds, they're like, nah, next one.
I mean, I know that to be true, certainly for myself. I can't be the only one, right? And even for reading on the internet, most of us are skimmers. You know, statistics have shown that we actually don't read word for word on the internet, on websites. So in some ways, attention spans are getting shorter, right? But I also think that when you have great content, when you have a compelling message, people are going to stick around for that. So yes, to exploring short form, how can we make your message really succinct, really to the point that your audience is going to understand that right away? And how can we play around with other forms that might meet other segments of your audience even better?
Yeah, I mean, so I think sometimes I personally, I don't pay that much attention to the time. If it says 10 minutes, then I'm out. But the whole point is to keep your audience engaged and deliver value, right? And so if you're doing that, then people will continue on. But maybe they won't open it in the first place. So I guess that could be an issue.
Remember when we grew up, so kind of dating myself here. When we grew up, there were like 3 or 4 TV stations, and you got to watch what they wanted to show you when they wanted to show it to you. Now it's everything, everywhere, all the time. And so I think that's why people are just looking at like 30 seconds of something, and they're like, okay, I got enough.
Yeah. And I would also add that long form videos are also successful. You know, right now media platforms are pushing the short forms, but ultimately the goal of every social media platform is to keep the user on their platform. So for a long time, they were actually promoting videos that were 10 minutes or longer. So for example, Facebook, uploading a video natively to Facebook that is 10 minutes long or longer, told the algorithm to actually push your video to more organic views, right? And as opposed to say, linking a YouTube video. So I think ultimately it's really about knowing your audience, knowing what they are drawn to, and leveraging what is true for you in terms of your storytelling forms of video that you feel most authentic and effective with, and really running with that.
So
I was just going to ask, if you're an entrepreneur and you're still trying to figure out who your audience is, what are some ways to do that?
Great question. So I think when it comes to selecting your niche and knowing your ideal clients, frankly, that can be more confusing than, we walk out of customer avatar exercises feeling even more confused than when we walked into it. But I think by starting with you, teaching what you know, sharing who you are, just leading with that authenticity magnetizes people who believe the same things, share the same values, kind of resonate in the same way. And then over time, with that consistency, you will start to attract people and start to notice the trends and kind of the demographics possibly that you're drawing in. So, but you have to take that initiative to first be showing up consistently and sharing your message.
So Emmy, you've talked a lot about being on social media. One thing I did for the Gearhart Law website was short, like 20-second videos on the homepage of each of the attorneys. And I've gotten mixed reviews. So people that are in the know are like, no, that's stupid. People that come to the site, though, some of them really like that. So should you be putting videos on your website? And is it a good idea to put like a 30-second introduction of yourself on your website?
So I wish I could give you a black and white answer that'd be like, Godlight comes through and like everybody gets more traffic on their website all of a sudden,
We definitely want to copyright the Godlight. So
yes.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's even harder than the Dune book. But I think depending on what your business is, what your goals and objectives are for your website, that's going to determine what type of video content you have on there. Now, for the show in particular, because you are drawing cold audiences who might just want that short 20-second taster, like, I don't want to watch a full episode yet. I just want to know a little bit about, who Elizabeth is, and I just want to feel out her vibe. I think that's a great idea, right? And particularly on your social media platforms too, because that's actually the first touch point of your cold audiences. Usually then people go from your social media, then to your website. Right. So I personally like to treat my website almost like the second point of contact, where it's like, now this is my magical world that you've come into. How can I bring you in? How can I show you more about us and the brand and what we're all about?
Oh, that's great. Well, that's a really great, interesting strategy. And
yeah,
do you think that it's important for an entrepreneur to like budget for social media advertising? And again, how can they? Let's say they decide to spend $500 or $1,000 a month. What is the best way for them to use that, do you think?
In my opinion, I think that if you have a small-ish budget, say $500 to $1,000, you're probably best served running a video as a video views campaign. So whether on Facebook or Instagram, that's something that I've always done in my business and something that we teach our customers and clients as well, because it's reasonably a low cost ad spend. But with even $5 a day, you can literally reach thousands of new eyeballs. And with the right piece of video content, that's ultimately, reaching new eyeballs is the lifeblood of any business, right? So having that little piece of content that is the first touch point between your cold audiences and you, generally not pitching anything, but something about your shared values, something about your brand, and allowing that to run on autopilot is really powerful.
That's excellent. That was called Video Views campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
good.
Exactly.
I have one last question, and I think we're running out of time for this segment, but let's go back to content for a minute. What I've been reading recently is, okay, so 30 seconds is the magic number, and try to even be less than that if you can, but you have to grab their attention from the first couple seconds. So how do you, I don't want to look like an idiot. Like I could jump around with a stupid hat on my head and probably get people's attention, right? But how do you do that and kind of stay serious?
I'd like to see that. I think we should try a few videos like that.
But how do you stay serious about your business and grab attention?
So I think that the crux is in the question right there, in that you almost have to choose, am I going to be serious or am I going to get somebody's attention? All right. So because what captures attention is something that is uncanny, a little unusual, something that's going to pique my interest, something that I don't expect to see in a video, or what is that person doing? That's going to pique somebody's interest. And we've seen across the social media landscape, and particularly TikTok, it's dancing, it's singing, it's, doing these things that I know for me as somebody in my 40s, I'm like, I am not doing a TikTok dance on social media. That is just not how I want to market, right? And maybe when I was 20,
what are you thinking?
But not now. It's just not my vibe. However, we can still use traditional principles to capture attention. So I guess more directly answering your question, if we want to be more on the serious side, we can use movement across a screen to capture attention, because our human eye is naturally drawn to movement. So it can be as simple as waving close up into the camera, gesturing towards the viewer directly. You can have interesting text that, moves or bounces across, or even just something very unconventional that perhaps really stands out in the feed. So say, for example, you're running a video views campaign on Facebook where it is largely people and faces. Maybe you're using an image, an object that's really different, that will stand out from the sea of faces. So it's kind of knowing where you're going to be showing that video, the context that it's going to be within, and how can I use movement, something that's interesting and unusual, to then capture attention.
Well, Emmy, oh my gosh, next time I do a video, I'm coming to talk to you.
I would love that.
So how do people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website. That's emmywu.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Emmy Wu Media.
Excellent.
Great. Well, we need to take a break. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest, Emmy Wu, who has been just a wealth of information. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. It is so great to have you listening tonight. Emmy Wu was just fantastic, giving us a lot of wonderful information about videos and how they can help your business. And now it's on to Power Move with Kenya Gipson. So Kenya, what's going on with Power Move?
Well, exciting things with Power Move. We're going to be talking about celebrity hairstylist Liana McKnight. So COVID-19 devastated her salon business, and it made her take a step back and move back to Las Vegas. So while she was there, she contemplated opening an online beauty business and wanted to focus on wigs and extensions, which is projected to be a $2 billion industry by 2026 in North America alone, according to Report Linker. So while she was there, she found a manufacturer. She wanted to sell natural, undetectable wigs, and she was able to increase her sales by more than 500% in over a 7-month period alone. Wow. And this past year, her husband quit his full-time job and is helping her run SL Raw Virgin Hair. So that's our Power Move for today.
I always wondered what I'd look like as a redhead, but I haven't gone there with the hair dye. Maybe I should get a wig and try it out.
That's a good way to try out hair color.
I didn't know that there were $2 billion worth of people wearing wigs out there either.
In North America alone, it's crazy.
Wow. And I don't, can you guys tell when somebody's wearing a wig or not?
Well, she's kind of crafted her own wig where it's undetectable. Sometimes you can, but she's figured out a way and found a manufacturer that can make it look like it's your real hair and you can't tell whether you're wearing a wig or not. So I would definitely try one of her wigs. I've always been kind of fascinated with that world of wigs.
The world of wigs. Well, anyway, thank you for that, Kenya. Let's not wig out over this, okay?
Oh, God.
Anyway, what's going on with Fireside, Elizabeth?
So Fireside Directory is a video directory of small businesses. We interview small business owners using cutting edge marketing techniques and then put them in a directory. I'm working on the website now, as you know. And as Emmy had said earlier, the whole reason I started this, I wanted to start with lawyers, but the lawyers didn't really want to do it. So I expanded to small business owners during COVID. We did it over Zoom. And
we have to change the names to protect the innocent.
Well, Richard was very cooperative, but he's the only one. But when you see somebody on video, you get an impression, a deeper impression than if you see a picture or you just read about them. And like, somebody may be great for somebody else, but I may look at them on video and go, I don't like them because they remind me of that guy that ripped me off 10 years ago. And it's not their fault, but but then I'm going to go on to the next person because I feel more comfortable working with them. So
well, hopefully we're not getting too many criminals on your video directory.
You never know.
You never know, though.
But you get the first impression, and you either inherently trust somebody because they remind you of somebody or something, or you don't trust them because of your own inner stuff. And why not work with somebody that you're going to be able to trust, right?
Makes perfect sense, right?
So anyway, so I'm working on the website. I'm going to talk to the website designer today because I think I found who I want to work with.
Oh.
And I'm excited to keep this going.
That is absolutely great. So everybody check out firesidedirectory.com and you can see what's going on there. And
if anybody on the show wants to do a video with me for Fireside, I would love to interview you and show you what I'm doing. So
absolutely.
I'll send you an email. It has the link to my Calendly to do a video. Anyway, so now it is time for our first presenter. So Bryan Fried with Rapid Grow LED. If you want to grow your own food, this is the guy you talk to. Hi, Bryan. Tell us all about it.
Nice to be here. Well, we started a commercial lighting company in 2000 from scratch. In 2017, we looked around and we saw this thing called climate change, and it wasn't going away. And so folks in my company, including my son, who's active, said, Dad, we think that the world is going to shift in terms of how food production is going to occur because whole crops are being wiped out all over the world by hurricanes, by severe weather, hail, you name it. And I said, well, that's true, David, but, things happen in cycles. He said, yeah, but think about it this way. We live in California. We have had issues about access to water for a very long time. And I said, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. And I said, so where are you going with this? And he said, I think the future is going to be growing crops indoors because indoors you don't have severe weather issues and you minimize the amount of water you have for crops. And I said, well, what do you think? What that led to was the development of a proprietary open architecture technology platform whose intention was to control every aspect of an indoor grow, coupled with lighting product families that would be specific to the type of grow. There are different types of lighting forms and spectrums that you'd find in a greenhouse than you would in a vertical grow or in the back of a grocery store or somebody's garage for that matter. So all of this was happening against a backdrop, of course, of the cannabis revolution, and cannabis is mainly grown indoors. And so my folks convinced me to go ahead and invest in this, and that was 2017. It was going to be very inexpensive, and it was going to only take a year. It was not inexpensive, and it took 3.5 years. So we finally released it last year, and we actually spun Rapid Grow LED Technologies off as a separate company last year because we got so much traction so fast. So now Rapid Grow LED basically is the capital equipment and technology for scalable indoor grows, from what you find in a garage or the back of a restaurant to very large, massive commercial grows that currently are growing everything from CBD products to marijuana-based CBD products to a variety of different kinds of produce.
Wow, that's amazing. So, so are these like light bulbs or fluorescent bulbs, or how, when you say lights, that's what I think of. So,
yeah, if we were still in that era, this would not exist. In order to grow plants, we need the sun. The sun is the best thing to grow plants,
right.
because it's basically a full spectrum of light, and the plant takes what it needs. The problem is the sun's not always there, and it's not there when you want it either. And so what happened in the last 10 years is, with the advent of LED lights, light emitting diodes, we're able to literally replicate specific spectrums that we would find in the sun.
So
and
when you say like spectrums, what you mean is like the wavelength of the light or something. It just basically duplicates sunlight, whereas regular light bulbs don't.
Right, not to get too technical, but the wavelength, the color, temperature. So LEDs come in colors. So for example, strawberries like a different type of light than tomatoes do, than butter lettuce does. And so because we design the LED light source from scratch, we can tailor make that spectrum and also the form factor, the thing that the LED light source sits in, to be applicable to a specific type of plant. Now, why is that important? Well, first of all, we've got an energy crisis going now. Everything's gotten exacerbated. And we need to reduce our carbon footprint because we're not building any new dams. And coal's not a very wonderful thing to a lot of folks. And we don't have any new nuclear reactors, but we have electric cars and we have a lot more need for electricity. So where are we going to get that power? Well, we can do it through brownouts and blackouts, but the public doesn't seem to like those. And so if you couple a technology platform with light emitting diodes, you can literally save half to 60% of the energy that used to be required when lighting was just a light bulb. So now with energy optimization, that's another reason why you can grow these things indoors economically and be plant specific about the type of light.
So Bryan, I have a room in my house that I could clear all the junk out of. And let's say I wanted to set this up in dedicate a room in my house. Could I do that?
Are you going to start smoking grass?
Oh God.
I was thinking vegetables, but
she was going to grow cherry tomatoes. Is really what she was thinking.
Right. That's fine.
Probably more profitable to grow pot. Anyway, so I just want to have a little garden for Richard and me and do some vegetables in my house in a room. Can I do that with your system?
Sure you can. I mean, basically, you just buy a light that is applicable for however big a room you have. And if you could just plug that light in and go for it. If you want to get really technical, you add the software platform and you can basically control that light, and you can store any recipe that you have come up with, any combination of light or light schedule.
So this is really cool. So you basically make lights that the plants like, and different plants like different light. So you can figure out what kind of light each plant wants. Is that in one bulb, or is that in multiple? Is that like different products for each kind of plant?
So yeah, there are actually different form factors and different products for each plant. And so what we try to do is tailor the kind of light the plant likes towards that plant. And it might be different colored lights. It might be more intense or less intense lights. But if you have control over them, then you can basically get whatever you need.
Well,
Cool.
I want to hear what Emmy thinks about this.
I love this idea. I mean, I personally have LED lights growing plants in my kitchen because I love gardening, but we live in a townhouse, so I don't have a huge garden space. So on top of all the environmental benefits, I think it's also great for people like me who, want to have the green thumb, but may not have the space to do so. And I'm also able to kind of play around and discover what are the best ways of lighting, this tomato, this basil, this, whatever I'm growing. And it's turned into quite the educational process, which has been wonderful during the pandemic.
This would make a great video too, right? Like you walking through your room and picking off your little tomatoes and making a salad.
You don't happen to have a light for short people, do you, that you could just hold over your head? No. Or
I'd be
hair
using
growing.
that for myself
Hair
if there
growing.
was.
So Kenya, what do you think about marketing ideas for this?
I think it's so clever. And I think of, I've worked with a few lighting companies in my heyday, and, they've never really offered it. It's been, cool lighting for your living room and for your bedroom and so on and so forth. But this is really cutting edge, and people can do it inside. So I guess, are you doing tutorials using your product? Like, is there, some kind of catalog of like YouTube content that you're showing, like how everyday consumers can implement this into their lifestyle?
It's, all of this is beginning to gin up because it's a brand new area. In fact, universities are putting that information out because they're doing research with our lights and others to see, how do you grow tomatoes? How do you grow basil? How do you grow whatever you want to grow? And I think we're going to see more and more of it. We do it, of course, and our competitors do it. And, I think it's just going to become the norm very quickly. They're already doing it in restaurants and grocery stores where you can go pick fresh lettuce off of a little home grow that they have in the store or in the restaurant.
Wow.
You get fresh stuff, it's fresh, no bugs, very economical, and it didn't ship somewheres to get stale.
Right.
That's really awesome. That is such a good idea. I'm thinking like of house plants in areas of the house that don't get a lot of sun, right?
Right.
And so instead of the silk plants, you can have real plants, but also, light those up, even if it's in a dark room.
Would you ever use it outside to like supplement where your garden is?
Yeah, actually, a great deal of our business is in greenhouses, or where we're using the lighting for supplemental light, where you have a gray day, or it's raining, or it's later in the day and the sun is not as strong, but the plant still wants some sunlight. And so that's a very, very common use.
So these bulbs they consume less energy than regular light bulbs, or because they're LEDs, right?
That's what he said.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's much better for the environment, much better, in a number of different ways.
So who's your biggest market right now?
Well, boy, it's so varied. It's the home grower of a variety of different type of plants to massive, massive farms and greenhouses, millions of square feet of plants growing under these types of lights. We recently completed an installation up in Northern California of 11,000 lights in one greenhouse.
Wow.
They grow basil and cherry tomatoes and flowers and all sorts of fun things. And you get them in your grocery store.
So how long do these last? Like, do you have to change them every year or a couple of years, or?
We warrant them for 5 years, but they'll last longer than that.
Wow.
So do you realistically see a day in the near future where most of our food is grown indoors? I mean, it just seems so much is grown outdoors, right? But maybe more efficiency, maybe if you build buildings on farms or something, I don't know. But is that eventually possible?
It's happening right now as we speak. So it will not completely shift over. There will be things that will grow outdoors because that makes sense. But the more things you can grow indoors, remember, when you grow indoors, you don't have seasons, so you can grow year round. So you don't have to import those peaches from South America, right? So you can also stack the grow. So it's just not one level in the ground. You can have 5, 6, 7 levels of whatever you're growing. So think of an urban area where there's no arable land, but you can have fresh produce right in the middle of that urban area. This shift is happening right now in like I said, everything from grocery stores to commercial grows. And I think we're going to see that trend continue.
So what happens to the insects? Like, there are good insects and bad insects. Do you ever bring any insects in? I mean, it's going to kill off all the insects if there's no plants outside to eat or do stuff with, right?
As long as the mosquitoes go, I'm fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bring the ladybugs in.
But do you ever bring like any insects in to interact with the plants?
Yeah, the beauty is you get to control whatever it is you want to bring in. Insects, irrigation, fertilizer, you choose that. The environment's completely controlled. You're not at the mercy of wind or rain or hail or severe weather. And so that environment's maintained. That's why you use so much less water.
Wow. I feel like I'm seeing the future unfold right here on Passage to Profit.
You are.
Well, do you remember that movie Soylent Green?
Oh.
I think this will help us avoid Soylent
I was going to
Green.
say, we don't want.
For those of you,
Is that the movie where they turn people into food?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Soylent
food.
Green is people. Soylent Green is
But I did love
release.
Charlton Heston.
Soylent Green is people. Well,
So-
we're not going to get there if we do this,
Right.
right?
So we have to stop this segment now, but I want to thank Bryan. It's been very lively and very interesting to hear about what you're doing. And we here at Passage to Profit completely support it and hope that it becomes even more prevalent. It seems the way to go. And having driven through the Midwest multiple times, it'd be nice to see something there besides cornfields. So
Thank you.
if you can make that happen,
So-
we'll all be happy.
How do people buy these? Where do they find you?
You can go to our website, rapidgrowled.com. And that's probably the easiest way. We're based in a suburb of Los Angeles, and we're very easy to find. We're very friendly too.
Well,
Excellent.
thanks for being on the show. We'll be right back with more Passage to Profit right after this.
Well, welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit on WOR 710.
That last segment was
Richard
like
was
so
here.
amazing, wasn't it?
Well, all of our segments have been amazing. And
Yeah,
we
I
have
know. We've
another,
had two fantastic segments in a row. So
we have another
but no one's
amazing,
counting, so-
amazing segment coming up.
I know
And
we do. And if they didn't get a chance to hear our first two segments, where do they go for
they
the
can go to
other
the
segment?
Passage to Profit podcast, which will be
What
out
a great
tomorrow.
idea.
But I really want to introduce Jason Elliott, and I really wish that this had been available a couple years ago. All you women listening out there, especially you young women, you want to know about this product when you hit menopause. I'm not kidding.
Absolutely.
So Jason, tell us all about it.
And the men want to know about it too,
Yeah.
just for the same reason. So
So Jason, tell us all about it.
Sure. You know, Emmy, I really liked what I heard.
have you ever
from-
been introduced that way before? That's
Yeah, actually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Emmy, I really like the concept of storytelling, and that's how we've been approaching our business. And we've so our business, the story is that I'm a terrible sleeper, and I'm an engineer as well, and I for years and years I tossed and turned all night, and I couldn't get a good sleep. I'd be in bed for 10 hours a night, and I'd wake up feeling completely unrested, and my wife would be sleeping great beside me. I was always way too hot, and that's why I couldn't sleep. I'd toss and turn, the mattress would heat up. I tried different mattresses. I tried, cold rooms. I tried everything, every product that I could find, and nothing helped. And, I got to a point of desperation, and it's like, oh, man, I just need to sleep. My job's getting more stressful. Things are getting busier in life. And it's like, I can't, I need to sleep. And so, a friend of and myself were entrepreneurial kind of engineer type people, and we were, looking for an idea to start a company. We wanted to do something different, and one day I mentioned while we were putting kids to bed, hey, I really I need I need a temperature controlled bed. And he looked at me and he's like, that's a great idea. And so, in the months that followed, I quit my job and we started developing this product. And so the product is basically a thermally controlled bed. So it controls the temperature of the bed that you're laying on. And so it's a thin layer you put on top of your bed. It's like a mattress topper, mattress pad. It's about 2 inches thick, soft, squishy, comfortable. But it has a built-in sensing and control system. So it senses your body temperature, and it adjusts the amount of cooling. So it has some fans in there that deliver airflow underneath your body, up around your body, gives you a nice dry sleeping environment, gets rid of night sweats, reduces hot flashes. It sometimes even eliminates hot flashes at night for women. So that's a big deal, really big deal. It has dual zone control. So one person can have a different temperature than the other person. So, no more fighting over the bed. Like something like 50% of couples fight over the temperature of their bedroom. So, yeah, so it's a wonderful product. Our customers are loving it. I love it. I sleep now. I sleep fantastic. It's changed my life as far as my health and my, mood and just, yeah, it's been fantastic. And it's been a real fun business to grow.
Well, I think if you can say that your company's purpose is to improve 50% of marriages, I think you're well ahead of the curve, right? So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is a big deal. Like stress in the bedroom is in a relationship isn't a good thing, and really around a bed, there's a big deal. People end up sleeping in different rooms. They fight over it, and it's you get grumpy too if you're not sleeping well.
Well, that's just it.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, getting a good night's sleep seems to be a big problem for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Because there's all these products, all these commercials, all these medications, all these different things you can take. But I think this would be really awesome. So who are you selling this to? Are you selling it off your website right now?
Yeah, we sell direct to consumers. So, we sell off of our website primarily. And, and I love talking to customers and finding out their problems and trying to help them tailor a solution for their temperature problems at night.
That's great. Well, so you're not only are you a marriage counselor, but you also make a product that helps people sleep better.
Yeah.
So that's amazing too.
So Emmy, what would you do for a video for Jason? I'm just curious.
Ooh, well, I think Jason gave it away. It really is sharing his personal story, his experience that I'm sure millions of people like that and his customers, and us included, resonate with. How many couples, one's hot, one's cold, right? So many people are like that. How many people go to bed okay, but then they wake up in the middle of the night because they're too hot? I think that's so common too. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be this amazing, Indiana Jones-esque story. It simply is sharing his true experience. So it's going to resonate with so many people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, people really, if you have a story that people relate to, and they have, and more importantly, when starting a business, you have to have a problem that you're solving. And so, that when we started, the first stage of what we did was we talked to people, and it's like, I have this problem. Do what's your sleep experience like? And to my surprise, it was very many people had, were too hot at night to sleep, would wake up in sweats, have to get up and change the bedding, had chronic sleep issues, had a spouse with a different temperature than they did, and blankets, so it was amazing that, I would say 70% of people I talked to said, wow, I've got this problem. I resonate with you. And so then you don't have to sell so hard, right? Like, you're not selling, you're helping. And really that's what business should be about, is helping people solve their problems.
So Kenya, our marketing genius here at iHeart, what do you think?
I just envision like some funny, like marital parody where they've tried to go to marital counseling and nothing's worked, but then they've gotten your product and like saved the day. Yeah. It would stand out. I think I don't know if
you can hire us to do it. I had a question about this though, Jason. What happens when you're sleeping peacefully and the cat comes and sits on you and raises your body temperature? Does it kick in for that?
It would a bit, yeah. So the product actually monitors your body temperature while you're sleeping, and so if you do start heating up, you'll get a little bit more cooling, which is why, like, disturbances in sleep, whether it's your cat or whether it's the sun came in the window or whatever the disturbance is, if there's a temperature related disturbance, which happens all the time to people and they just forget about it, they don't even consider it, every time you roll over, every time you move, it disturbs your sleep, and the quality of your sleep deteriorates, the quality of your health deteriorates, and on relationships and all that. So the product keeps the temperature that you're laying in, your microclimate of your bed, it keeps that temperature the same. So you don't wake up, you don't kick the blankets off, you don't roll over, you don't do all those things that you do naturally. So you're not disturbed as much, and you do sleep better. Even my wife, she was a fantastic sleeper. And then since we've had the product developed and we've been using it for a couple of years, we go to a hotel room and she's like, man, this was what life was like before. And she didn't even realize she wasn't sleeping well. So it even benefits everybody, really.
So now you have to make a portable one, right?
Yeah.
The travel version,
so
right?
How much, I'm just curious, how much does this cost and where can I get one?
Yep, we off of our website, the queen size is $1,600 US. So it's not a particularly cheap product. It's got a lot of technology in there that's driving what happens. So it's, a lot of people say, oh man, it's that, I paid that for my mattress. It's like, well, your mattress is a block of foam. It doesn't have a cooling and heating system in it that's monitoring your body temperature and keeping you at the right temperature, and a foot warmer and a remote control on your app. And, so there's a lot of features in there that improve your life, and it's much more than a mattress.
Yeah, I can really relate to that because even if we have, temperature control in our bedroom, it changes all the time, and the house gets warmer or colder, almost it's constantly changing depending on the temperature outside and how well the
I would pay
unit is functioning.
I would pay $1,600 for a good night's sleep, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, my God, it affects your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. That's the logic there. It's like those people that are kind of choke on the price, they're all, it's a mistake, because your health is worth far more than that investment.
Yeah,
right? It really is an investment in your health.
Yeah, it certainly is. So I take it this thing is pretty quiet.
It is.
Yeah, so you wouldn't.
So it's got a couple. Yeah, the way the cooling works is it has a couple fans in the foot of the bed that draw in cool air, and then it blows it underneath your body. Those fans are really quiet. If you crank it up to maximum power, it's kind of like having a fan in your room. But during regular operation for people with reasonably cool rooms, you can barely tell it's there.
Would this substitute for air conditioning in like a 90-degree?
I would say it supplements it. Like I did a bunch of testing at 90-degree climates, and the coolest and most comfortable place was on the bed, better than standing up, right? Because you got all this airflow and whatnot. But it doesn't really replace air conditioning. I've had many customers say that they used to keep their room at 65, and now they can keep their room at 72. So they've dropped their AC bill by half, in Las Vegas, kind of thing. So it supplements, but I don't think it doesn't make your room colder. So if your room is 90 Fahrenheit, then you're still in a 90 Fahrenheit room,
Well, this is a little bit dangerous because Richard already says, I don't really like to travel. I hate staying in hotel rooms because they're not nearly as comfortable as our house. So if I get this, he's never going to want to sleep anywhere else.
I'm never leaving.
Yeah. Unless you make a portable one we can take to the hotel with us. Or like the really fancy high-end hotels should have these, right?
I think so too. Yep. I haven't started talking to hotels, but I think they'll love it. So.
Oh yeah. Like go to the Omnis.
Well, this has been an awesome discussion. And Jason, I credit you and your partner for the inventiveness and the practicality of this and using modern sensors to keep us comfortable. I think that's great.
Yeah, so we have to wind this up, unfortunately, but I am going on your website. So you can find this at perfectlysnug.com. And listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, our special guest, Emmy Wu, on WOR 710. And we're not done yet. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit, and wow, what a show we had tonight. It was just amazing. And I enjoyed every second.
Right. Amazing advice for entrepreneurs and amazing products. And like, I do feel like with this show, we're looking at the future today. My gosh.
I think so too.
Yeah. So who did we have? We had the wonderful Emmy Wu, EMMYWU.com. So, you need to do a video. then what? She's the person you want to talk to. She helps you tell your story in a way that will help you with your marketing and not come across
Make
as,
your videos great with Emmy. Reach out to her.
and she'll teach you how to use video to market your business. So
Absolutely.
she's really important. And then we had Bryan Fried with rapidgrowled.com.
A really bright idea.
Oh, God.
I feel sorry people in light bulb business because I'm sure they get all sorts of things like that all the time.
So if you want to grow your own food under your conditions with lights that are tuned to the specific food you want to grow that will really grow.
It's a
fresh,
growing
delicious
business
food.
too. I think, okay.
Then Bryan is the person you want to talk to. rapidgrowled.com. And then after you've eaten all that delicious food that you've grown,
And after you've done your video,
well, I think this is before you do your video, you get a super good night's sleep, right?
there you go.
And to get a super good night's sleep, you want Perfectly Snug. It's brand new technology. It controls, it goes over the mattress you have now. It controls your bed temperature based on your body temperature. So honestly, I mean, who hasn't woken up in a hot sweat in the middle of the night and gone, how do I go back to sleep now? I'm burning up.
Keeps you as cool as you like.
Keeps you the temperature you need to get a really good night's sleep. So perfectlysnug.com. And of course, we had the wonderful Kenya Gipson. So Kenya is the media maven. She is our iHeart contact. And you can find her at Kenya Gipson with a P, Kenya Gipson at iHeartMedia.com. And you know, if you want to get on the radio or you want to do some digital marketing, yeah, talk to Kenya.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been doing digital marketing for us for a long time, and they get a double thumbs up in our book. So reach out to Kenya and she can help you with all that. But before we go, I'd like to ask Emmy and Kenya for some final words for our audience. So Emmy, what are your parting thoughts?
Thank you for this. I think my parting thought would be to just start. So many entrepreneurs are held back because they, don't think that they're ready for video or want to lose the last 10 pounds before they show up or, don't have the right background. And those things can hold us back for months, even years. So instead of focusing on perfection, just put yourself out there. Your ideal clients are literally looking for you.
That's great. And I think that's great advice. Kenya?
Yeah, I love the theme of the show today, innovation and ingenuity. I feel like everyone brought something very different to the table, and all it takes is a really good idea to get it out to the right people with the right marketing plan. So just a really great conversation today.
Well, thank you, Kenya. Thanks for being on the show. And I'd like to thank our listeners also for listening to us on Passage to Profit. We love you. And we'll be back again with another fantastic Passage to Profit next week.
But we also need to thank other people.
But before we go, we'd like to thank our producer, Noah Fleischman, our program coordinator, Alicia Morrissey, our video editor, Chatterboss, and the whole iHeart team. You're listening to Passage to Profit on iHeartRadio, WOR, the voice of New York.